Section 22. In the beginning of this section, we learn about the types of men and women that God will reward. Surely for Muslim men and women, believing men and women, devout men and women, truthful men and women, patient men and women, humble men and women, charitable men and women, fasting men and women who guard their chastity, and men and women who remember God often. For all of them, God has prepared forgiveness and a great reward. A few verses later, God declares that Muhammad is the messenger of God and the seal of all the prophets. Then we get some verses about the rules God had set in relation to marriage and divorce. And we find an interesting verse where God says, "People ask you, O Prophet, about the hour. Say, that knowledge is only with God. You never know, perhaps the hour is near." Then moving into the next chapter, we get more insight into the stories of David, Solomon and Sheba. Then we find various verses providing fascinating insight into the things that people will say on Judgment Day. And then a verse regarding provisions in this life. "Say, O Prophet, surely it is my Lord who gives abundant or limited provisions to whoever He wills of His servants. And whatever you spend in charity, He will compensate you for it, for He is the best provider." The next chapter begins with God stating that He is the Creator and makes mention of one of His creations, the angels. Then questions humanity. Is there any other creator than God who provides for you from the heavens and the earth? Also through this chapter, we find various verses that exemplify the power of God. Just to mention a few, the reminder by analogy of how God gives life to the dead earth with rain, and similarly the resurrection of human beings will occur. That it is humanity who are in need of God, and only God alone is self-sufficient, in need of no one. That if He willed, He could eliminate humanity and produce a new creation. Then we come to an amazing verse where God says, "No soul burdened with sin will bear the burden of another. And if a sin-burdened soul cries for help with its burden, none of it will be carried, even by a close relative. You, O Prophet, can only warn those who stand in awe of their Lord without seeing Him and establish prayer. Whoever purifies themselves, they only do so for their own good, and to God is the final return." Later, we find a couple of verses about what the believers will say when they are in paradise and what the disbelievers will say when they are in the hellfire. And that brings us to the end of section 22.